20th October 2022, the Directorate General of Shipping DGS published an order stipulating the guidelines for mandated documents and certification for vessels operating in Indian waters. Hello guys, welcome to Enterclimate, a leading environmental consultancy. My name is Diksha Khetani and as entered right now, this video is regarding the latest DGS guidelines for vessels operating in Indian waters. So watch the complete video if you want to know about these guidelines in detail. Coming back to the topic where I was telling you about the guidelines, so there are orders under the MODU Code 1989 or 2009 or the SPS Code for vessels carrying more than 12 people in addition to the crew and master of the ship. The recently issued guidelines for the vessels operating in Indian waters supersedes the previous MS Notice 22 of 2013 dated 5th September 2022 immediately. Now requirements mentioned under the DGS guidelines for vessels operating in Indian waters. The requirements for crew boats are: number 1, the high-speed craft having more than 12 persons other than the crew and the master obtained for registration as a foreign or Indian vessels anticipating an operation license in Indian waters after the issue of this order must be certified as HSC passenger ships under HSC code. Number 2, such existing Indian vessels apart from those falling under the high-speed craft definition mentioned under SPS code according to MSN 22 of 2013 may resume running under the old jurisdictions. Number 3, the prevailing Indian high-speed crafts mentioned under the SPS code must also meet the structural fire protection damage and intake stability and additional safety requirements regarding speed and acceleration for an HSC passenger craft. Next scheduled dry docking has to draft this. Number 4, all crew boats and firms operating such vessels must obtain certificates under the ISM code irrespective of the tonnage. The SAR, that is Search and Rescue Plan and Measures, must be available. Also, the RO must verify these and indicate SAR support from shore within 3 months of the issuance of DGS guidelines for vessels operating in Indian waters. Now, I will be telling you about the requirements for self-propelled vessels mentioned under the guidelines for vessels operating in Indian waters. Number 1, according to the guidelines, self-propelled vessels carrying more than 12 persons in addition to the crew and the master must be certified. These vessels must be certified either as a specific purpose ship or passenger vessels. Number 2, additionally, the self-propelled vessels must possess relevant convention certificates with all periodical annual intermediate endorsements. Also, they must have a class certificate mentioning particular notations. Besides, the vessels must obtain MLC certificate, insurance certificate, ISPS certificates, safety management certificates and updated class survey status. Number 3, a special purpose ship must comply with requirements like vessels created before 13th May 2008 must comply with SPS code IMO Resolution A 534-13. On the other hand, vessels created after the date mentioned above must comply with SPS code 2008 MSC Resolution 266-84. Irrespective of its GAT and type, all vessels must obtain and maintain and administer an effective safety management system SMS, including both the operations on board all the ships and company operations subject to ISM, that is International Safety Management Code. Additionally, according to the ISM code, the vessels must have a valid statement of compliance, that is SOC or SMC, and a document of compliance DOC issued by an RO. So next, I'll be mentioning the requirements for non-self-propelled accommodation barge. In addition to fulfilling the requirements of MODU Code 2019 or 1989, based on the year of modification or construction, the self non-propelled accommodation vessels, that is foreign or Indian, must comply with some other requirements also. The vessels must have a MODU certificate or similar safety certificate as a non-drilling surface unit with accommodation according to MODU Code 1989 or 2009. The non-self-propelled vessels operating in Indian waters must possess certain documents and certificates like load line certificate, on-board certificates as per the provisions of MLC Convention, insurance certificates, other financial security regarding liability of removal of wrecks, that is WRLC, the International Convention for Prevention of Pollution from Ships, MARPOL certificates and their supplements, insurance certificates and certificate of other financial security regarding the bunker pollution liability, MLC certificate, ISPS certificate, class certificates, safety management certificates and company document as per the ISM code. Now, I'll be telling you about according to the DSG guidelines for vessels operating in Indian waters, there must be a designated person, that is DP, allotted in India having direct access to top management to implement and offer emergency preparedness and risk mitigation measures on the vessels and guidance if required by the vessel from shore in all the cases. There must be availability of minimum safe manning by the STCW certified ratings and officers. Furthermore, the vessels must have all the necessary equipment to be secured safely at their location while having special passengers or personals on board. Also, a mooring analysis assessment report must be available on the vessels at all the times. All crew accommodation regions must comply with requirements stipulated in the Amendment MS Crew Accommodation Rules 1960, MLC 2006 or Crew Accommodation Certificate. In addition to all these, all approved towing plan in foul and fair weather, unmanned or manned, must be available on board. All non-self-propelled barges must maintain immersion suits for all personnel on the ship. Also, there must be extra immersion suits for personnel in machinery and bridge control room. Non-propelled accommodation barges with an SPS certificate must obtain a MODU code by the next scheduled dry dock. So this was all about the requirements. Next, I will be talking about the requirements for mobile offshore drilling unit according to the DGS guidelines for vessels operating in Indian water. As per the guidelines, the existing mobile offshore drilling unit, that is MODU, non-propelled or propelled under the Indian registry, must adhere to MODU Code 1979, 1989 or 2009. This must be depending on the year of modification or construction. Such MODU certified as per the 1979 MODU Code must modify and process certifications under the MODU Code 1989 within 2 years from the date of this order's publication. Besides, any propelled or non-propelled MODU partaking in a tender after the publication of this order must adhere to requirements of MODU Code 2019 or 1989 based on the year of modification or construction. The DSG guidelines for vessels operating in Indian waters also mandates the foreign flag mobile offshore drilling facilities certified according to the 1979 MODU Code operating in Indian waters on the date of order publication to obtain and update the certificate. However, the certificate must be obtained under the MODU Code 1989 within 2 years from the date of this order's publication. Okay, so that was all about the requirement parts. Now here are some general requirements for both the non-self-propelled and the self-propelled vessels. The guidelines have been published in the public interest to promise life safety at sea. The maximum age of the life rafts utilized on the accommodation barges must not be more than a decade. Vessels obtain exemption by their flag are not allowed under code, convention or otherwise if such exemptions haven't been given to the Indian vessels by the Directorate, they shall not be generally considered. Regarding the insurance mentioned in this order, the vessel's third-party liabilities and its crew must be covered by Protection and Indemnity or P&I Club of the owner of the ship. All vessels must obtain a MODU safety certificate or an SPS safety certificate as applicable. The insurance of non-marine personnel mentioned in the guidelines must be given by the P&I Club. However, the insurance from Indian firms may also be considered. A plan for proceeding to the designated safe place and emergency demobilization and evacuation must be available. All Indian flag accommodation barges must get a trading license to work in Indian waters. Besides, vessels while transferring people to offshore accommodation barges or ships platforms must be instructed by the International Marine Contractors Association IMCA and IMO guidelines. Every year, all Indian accommodation barges must be available for the flag state scrutiny. An approved search and rescue plan for coordination with suitable Indian SAR services must be available in case of any emergency. The insurance certificates needed for the non-marine personnel should not be less than rupees 22 lakhs or as given in the contract, whichever is more. All foreign flag vessels including accommodation barges should be available for port state control scrutiny as and when needed. The entity engaged in the vessels in Indian waters must ensure that the vessel complies with the appropriate requirements under the DGS guidelines issued for vessels operating in Indian waters. Unless mentioned otherwise, the requirements stipulated in this order must come to effect immediately. Lastly, the permission and operations of the vessels to it must be subject to meeting the conditions above. So here we reach the end of the video, but before signing off, I would like to conclude that DGS guidelines for vessels operating in Indian waters came into action in public interest to guarantee the safety of sea life, mandating the certification of accommodation barges, offshore vessels and so on while operating in Indian Executive Economic Zone is an unusual step. So this was all about DGS guidelines for vessels operating in Indian waters. In case of any queries, feel free to reach us by contacting on the details being shown on your screens below. If you found the video interesting, don't forget to like and share it. Also do subscribe our channel for watching more such informative content. Thank you.